We're not touching. I have not touched everything. Everything I've never been. I excel at everything.
Sarah Kimberly.
Sarah Boone, a name that swept a nation in February 2020, and as years continued, it is now known globally. But just who is Sarah Boone? With so many questions and so little answers, we're going to go back and see the making of Sarah Boone and how she got from where she was to where she is now.
Your partner there, Sarah, likes to hang out at the mall. Now, what do you do while you're just hanging at the mall, Sarah?
Well, check out guys and spend money.
Check out the dudes and spend the cash. Your cash or like parents' cash?
Mine.
That's right. In 1997, Sarah was on a Nickelodeon game show at the age of 18. Sarah Catherine Paulson grew up in the Orlando area. Her parents, John and Karen Paulson, were married in 1972 in Georgia. In 1981, they moved to Orlando, where they would raise their 3 children, Sarah and her 2 brothers. Sarah's dad passed away when she was relatively young. After her dad passed, her mom went to school to become a nurse. It was noted that her mom was an excellent student and had a perfect GPA. Do you remember this clip?
I don't think you all understand who I am.
Okay. Well, tell me.
I mean, I've always been a straight-A student. I am an outstanding mother to my son.
Okay.
I excel at everything.
Although it sounds very narcissistic, I do believe her when it comes to her grades. I think her mother really cared about grades for herself and her 3 children. The 3 children would go on to graduate from Edgewater High School. Her mom passed away in 2003. Sarah was 25 at the time. Sarah would go on to meet Brian Boone. They both were in their early 20s when they first met, which brings us to our first year in Sarah's timeline, 2005. At age 27, Sarah married Brian Boone. Much like I'm doing for Sarah's brothers, I am leaving some information that I have found out about Brian out of this video. I think that Brian especially has been through enough, and he is the sole provider for their son. So I will be using only footage and photos of him that are public. Not too long after, they bought their first house together. Although I believe that Sarah worked, I cannot find her work history online. I believe that Brian was the breadwinner. In 2011, the couple had their first and only child together, Lucas. Oddly, this would also be noted for Brian as the year that he noticed Sarah changing.
And how long would you say the alcoholism has been a part of her life?
Well, I mean, it's always been a part of her life. It seemed to have gotten worse and worse. I think more or less kind of since we had Lucas. And I think a lot of it was the fact that she kind of, I guess, maybe felt trapped or something.
Okay.
That, I mean, before that, I mean, whenever she wanted, you're outside having a drink, oh, I want to go play pool, you go over across the street, you play pool for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's not happening anymore when she got a kid.
Up until this point, Sarah has no criminal history. In fact, in 2015 was the first time she ever got a speeding ticket. In 2017, Sarah and Brian had been separated. Brian, for a brief period of time, moved back in with his parents while they underwent therapy. In the meantime, Sarah was still going to her neighborhood bars and meeting new people. This is where she met Jorge Torres. Now, I'm not going to speculate about their relationship at that moment. But what we do know is Brian had moved back in for a short amount of time, and people at all hours of the night would walk in their house and be yelling for Sarah. Combined with a combination of other factors, Brian had just had enough and said they were done. Shortly after, her and Torres began dating. It seems like from the start that Sarah's friends and family all did not like Jorge Torres, and Jorge Torres's family really didn't like Sarah. When I do the Jorge Torres Unmasked video, you'll get to hear all about how his family really did not want him to be with her and encouraged him to leave her. Alright, if you were looking for a good place to pause, go get a drink, go to the bathroom, this would be the time to do it because 2018 is crazy. Don't forget to like and subscribe as I will be doing a Jorge Torres Unmasked next week. And now we are in 2018. We know that Jorge Torres had a pretty long rap sheet of criminal behavior that we will break down during his video. And Sarah, up until this point, had only ever gotten a speeding ticket. But within their relationship, Jorge was arrested 4 times for domestic I'm gonna say that so I don't get censored, against Sarah, and each time she bailed him out. Now, some of the times are not exactly clear, but one of the times for sure is, and that is because in 2018, Sarah was also arrested along with him. Both were charged with a criminal felony for their physical actions towards each other. I'm going to be reading now the officer's report and the statement that Sarah and Jorge gave that night. On July 25th, 2018 at 1:52 in the morning, Zito responded, reference a male kicked a female in the eye. I later determined this would be an aggravated battery by strangulation and a battery case both by dating violence. Upon my arrival, I spoke to Sarah Catherine Boone. Sarah verbally stated she was at an unknown bar earlier in the evening where she asked an unknown male for a cigarette. Her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr., of 1.5 years, became upset since she was talking to another male and left the bar. They both went back to their residence and continued verbally arguing. Sarah was dragged upstairs by Jorge, and she was kicked in her right eye using his right heel. Sarah was unable to describe how she fell to the ground or how she was dragged up the stairs by Jorge. Sarah refused medical treatment. Sarah refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. After I spoke to Sarah, I spoke to Jorge. Jorge verbally stated that they both were at their residence, verbally arguing, and had been consuming alcohol. They had been dating for 1.5 years and residing together for 1.2 years. Jorge attempted to go upstairs to avoid Sarah. While Jorge was walking upstairs, Sarah reached towards Jorge's throat using both of her hands. Sarah placed both of her hands around Jorge's throat and applied pressure to the extent that Jorge was having a difficult time breathing. Jorge was sitting on the steps and started kicking towards Sarah in an attempt to get her off him. Jorge believes he might have kicked Sarah in her face, but was not sure. Jorge believed that if he did not kick Sarah off him, she would have made him incapacitated due to the strangulation. Jorge refused medical treatment. Jorge also refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. Both Sarah and Jorge stated they have been dating for approximately 1 year and 6 months and residing together for approximately 1 year and 2 months. The left side of Jorge's neck had red markings and a small abrasion that is consistent with being strangled. Sarah, her right eye is bruised and swollen from receiving an impact. Both Sarah and Jorge allowed D.S. Ramirez to take pictures of their injuries. Both Sarah and Jorge received a victim's right booklet with a name and case number, along with a photo injunction referral. Due to conflicting statements and injuries on both Sarah and Jorge, I was unable to determine who was the primary aggressor. I placed both Jorge and Sarah under lawful arrest and search. Jorge was placed into the back seat of my patrol car and Sarah was placed into the back seat of D.S. Ramirez's patrol car. I informed both Sarah and Jorge the charges that are being placed against them, which they stated they understood. Due to both parties refusing to write statements and or signing any domestic violence documents, I was unable to complete a victim request of confidentiality, authorization for release, or confidential information form and written statements. Both parties stated that they didn't want to testify and or prosecute each other. Both Sarah and Jorge were transported to the Orange County Booking and Receiving Center. Jorge was booked and charged for battery. Sarah was booked and charged for aggravated battery. Both Sarah and Jorge stated they do not own any firearms. My body cam was worn and activated. I think it's pretty safe to say that individually, Sarah and Jorge were pretty toxic people. But 2 toxic people combined, and it was just a disaster waiting to happen. Now we know of this date, and the only other confirmed date I could find that was set was September 2019. That was the last time that Jorge was arrested for the same incident. And again, Sarah bailed him out. Now for this case's main headline story. On February 24th, 2020, Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres were at their apartment, and according to Sarah, it was a wonderful day. The weather was great outside. They did a puzzle, they played games, and one of the games was hide and seek. Now, although she says there was a little bit of wine involved, during their hide and seek, things clearly took a turn for the worst. How do we know that? Because Sarah videoed that night of Torres in a suitcase saying that he couldn't breathe.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
Sarah. I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah. 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 Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
Reel around some. Might want to get video for it extra. Because I got this.
Sarah.
Reel around some.
Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Oh. That's what I feel like when you ching on me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Fucking breathe, Sarah.
Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
Sarah.
What we do know is Sarah went to bed. She claims that she thought he could get out of the suitcase, so she went upstairs to wait for him. I'm not sure if I necessarily buy that. I could also see her going upstairs and passing out if they had a lot to drink. Her ex, Brian, talked about how that would be a common nightly thing with her, that she would just drink until she passes out. So I think it would be applicable in this story. But either way, Sarah eventually woke up the next day around 11 a.m. and went downstairs. She discovered that Jorge had passed, and who was the first person she called? Brian Boone. Brian Boone was the first and only person Sarah called, and when Brian got there and walked into the main entryway of the apartment, Sarah quickly began to say what was going on and what she found. Brian immediately told her to call the police and stepped right back outside. He told the police everything and anything that he thought he could have touched because he did not want to be implicated in a murder. Sarah was subsequently arrested. As she's been in jail, she's gone through 8 attorneys. After requesting for a 9th attorney, the judge denied her, and she is now having to represent herself. What we do know is that the state has charged her with 2nd-degree murder. I think that with the proof of burden, it's going to be hard to get completely to that 2nd degree, but most assuredly a manslaughter at the very least. I hope this video helped you learn a little bit more about Sarah Boone and the impending trial. As I said earlier in the video, I'm going to be putting out Jorge Torres Unmasked next week. Feel free to write me or even email me if you have any other deep dives that you would like me to do. Thanks for watching.